morning and hello, friends. And welcome to Startup Yale 2023. I am so glad you are joining us today. My name is Angelica Gonzalez, and I am the faculty director of the Tsai Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. There's lots of me. Okay. There we go. Okay, Sci-City's mission is to inspire students from diverse backgrounds and disciplines to seek innovative ways to solve real-world problems. In my role, I get to work with Sci-City's stellar team and students, as well as our colleagues and close collaborators at a network of centers and programs throughout Yale. Together, we are excited to bring to you Startup Yale 2023. Startup Yale is a university-wide showcase of top students and community entrepreneurs. This is going to be an exciting event with 8 pitch events featuring 31 ventures vying for 8 prizes, totaling $175,000. Thank you for joining us. That's big money. Startup Yale started 7 years ago as a simple way to unite 4 startup prizes for students at the university and has grown into a community-wide celebration of innovation, and in particular, a celebration of our diverse, innovative community and the high-impact ventures that our students and community create. This year, we received 126 applications, and with the help of 25 experts, reviewers, who provided feedback to all applicants, and 32 judges who helped select our 31 finalists, we are now bringing them to you in this multi-day competition and celebration. Last night, we kicked things off with the Thorn and New Haven Civic Innovation Prize. The New Haven Civic Innovation Prize of up to $10,000 awarded by Dwight Hall to the best student or community-led venture or project focused on benefiting the city of New Haven. The Thorn Prize for social innovation in health or education of $25,000 awarded by Innovate Health, Yale, to the best student-led venture focused on social innovation in health or education. Today, you get to watch the remaining 6 prizes, including the Sustainable Venture Prize of $25,000, awarded by the Yale Center for Business and the Environment to the most promising student venture that advances in environmental sustainability. The Miller Prize of $25,000, awarded by Sci-City to the best student-led venture working on innovative tech or tech-enabled solutions that has a definable go-to-market strategy. The Rita Wilson Prize is in support of innovation and entrepreneurship, a prize of $10,000 awarded by Innovate Health Yale to the best student-led venture focused on creating a technological solution to address a health disparity in the United States. The Black Venture Summit Prize of $20,000 will be awarded by CT Next, Sci-City, and the Yale School of Management's Black Business Alliance to the best startup that addresses a pressing need in Black communities and or whose founders or co-founders identify as Black or African American. The Manilo Sanchez Prize of $25,000, awarded by Sci-City to a for-profit or non-for-profit startup with the potential to help improve the financial health of the financially underserved. The Yale Innovator Prize of $15,000 will be awarded by the Yale School of Management and Sci-City to the for-profit or non-for-profit startup that has the potential to produce the greatest impact. And finally, all pitch competitions will also award an Audience Choice winner. Audience Choice winners will each receive $2,000. Whew, that was a lot. Before we start the first competition, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Mind Trust, and all of our generous prize donors. Our heartfelt thanks goes out to all of you for providing invaluable support to our entrepreneurs. And I also want to thank all of those in the Yale Entrepreneurship Collaborative of the university centers, organizations, and programs who support students, innovators, every day, both within and outside of the classroom. Thank you all. So now, let's begin. I am pleased to introduce my colleague, Stuart DeCue, Executive Director of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment, who will be kicking off today's first competition.
Thanks so much, Angelica, and everyone here at SciCity and the whole team. You're not going to hear a lot from me. We've got 4 amazing pitches that are going to be coming at you. We've got 5 incredible judges, Ryan, Sarah, Justin, Sophie, and Lindsay. We're representing diverse experience from across sectors. And this 15 years ago, we started this venture prize. And I don't think any of us imagined we'd be in this beautiful space with this diversity and depth of talent, receiving more applications of higher quality than we've ever got. And so we're in a position and a place right now that I think is just so encouraging, and we're incredibly enthusiastic, and just seeing the effort and work of the entrepreneurs that they put in this past year to get to this point is remarkable. So we're gonna get things started really quick. We know what you wanna hear, which is the entrepreneurs who are pitching today. The first one that we have is Tyree Tech. I'd like to invite Tyree up. This is just one of the 4 you're going to hear. Let me give you a little bit on format here. We're going to hear 6-minute pitches. So this is going to be fast-paced. You're going to hear a lot of information coming at you. And then we're going to have 5 minutes for questions from the judges. Apologies, we do not have time for questions from the audience. They're all going to come from this lovely this group of 5 right here. But please feel free to kind of contact and question and get in touch with the teams afterwards. So love to introduce Tyree Tech. Please give them a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wen Xingyuan from Tyree Technology, and today I want to draw your attention to 2 global trends. So we are in a global climate crisis. In the past 50 years, atmospheric carbon content has skyrocketed. In order to keep Earth habitable, we need to remove 10 gigatons of CO2 each year. At the same time, we are facing a global food shortage. As world population continues to grow, we will soon be unable to meet the increasing protein demand. So, at Tyree Tech, we tackle both challenges by turning CO2 into valuable products. And here is how it works. We first capture CO2 from a high-emitting source, such as a power plant. Then we feed CO2 to microalgae. Finally, as microalgae mature, its biomass can be made into high-protein feed additives. Our project is built on one of the largest microalgae carbon fixation projects in the world, led by our co-founder, Dr. Guo. Current technologies make some progress, but he found it cannot be scalable due to 3 key challenges. First, as you can see in this video, it requires a high amount of land space. This one is right about 800 acres, roughly the same size of Yale main campus. Number 2, only 30% of CO2 can be fixed in this process. And number 3, the quantity of the microalgae that can be produced is low. So how can we overcome these challenges? Our team has been working on using proprietary technologies to combat this problem in 3 steps. First is a bicarbonation process that is to turn captured CO2 into a liquid form for a longer absorption time period. And second is a novel photobioreactor that will accelerate the growth rate. It will leverage both the natural and artificial light. It will be used to grow genetically optimized microalgae. It will also be equipped with AI controls for maintaining the optimal growing conditions. Thirdly, the microalgae are funneled into a dark fermentation reactor for exponential growth and production. Lastly, we can harvest the biomass and make them into high nutrient feed additives. So our innovative process will allow us to make improvements on all 3 challenges. Since our reactors are vertical, we can dramatically decrease the land space required from 800 acres down to 8 acres. As for the CO2 fixation efficiency, we expect to see an increase from 30% to 90%. As for the growth rate, we have seen a 20x improvement for the productivity. Ultimately, our breakthroughs will allow us to reduce the prices from 2,800 to 1,500. And this reduction will allow us to be competitive in the market against the fish meal additives, which is the existing dominant protein source. As we know, fish meal is a non-sustainable source for protein. But with microalgae-based products, we can provide a comparable amount of protein with much more essential nutrients and, more importantly, in a more sustainable way. So these prices will allow us to be competitive in both carbon removal and animal feed additive markets. And by 2030, we expect to have a collective global total addressable market of roughly $29 billion. And we expect to capture 10 to 15% of the market, totally around $4 billion. We're fortunate to have assembled a team with diverse expertise that collectively covers all the components we're working on. Among us, we have award-winning expertise in synthetic biology, 15 years experience in carbon capture, storage, and utilization, and 7 years in microalgae innovations. We started assembling our team in 2021, and now we plan to start our process in the lab next month, and we plan to finish our first photobioreactor prototype by June. And the price will be really crucial for us in two ways. First, we could submit our patent application, and we can also finish our first novel photobioreactor prototype. And then we plan to finish the other two reactors, start building a string library, and also run a pilot scale production. And finally, we plan to launch our first commercial full-scale site by March 2025. Thinking back to the two global trends I mentioned at the beginning, hopefully they sound less daunting and more promising now. We're confident in the solutions we have developed, and we are excited to see the impact it can create. Benchmarking some of the existing microalgae sites today, we expect a typical single site for us will be able to remove 400,000 tons of CO2 and turn them into 50,000 tons of clean protein additives each year. We are Team TyrraTech, and we turn CO2 into value. We can't wait to help solve two of the world's largest challenges of our time with you. Thank you, and I and Phil will be excited to take questions.
All right, judges. Justin.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful. As you go vertical with these reactors, I assume you need to get light to penetrate down to the bottom, rather than these low ones, which I assume allow for sunlight to make their way to all the microalgae. What is the energy intensivity? What is the plan there?
Nice question. Thank you. So basically, our plan for the bioreactor is vertical. It's not only a vertical, but we also have devices to blend microalgae, mixing the microalgae within the photobioreactor. So we have an internal light source, plus it's also utilizing the solar energy at the same time. So we've done a very careful calculation. Our co-founder, Dr. Guo, is an expert in designing photobioreactors for microalgae. And these seem to be very efficient in helping out microalgae to grow, and in turn reducing the microalgae production price, so that it's competitive in the animal feed market.
Connected, first of all, thank you. Excellent work. Connected to Justin's question, I'm curious to know, you indicated in 2025 is when you hope to locate the first commercial facility. Do you anticipate any challenge between matching the sort of point source and the necessary, if necessary, kind of solar exposure for the production? And have you looked at sort of geographies for the location of that facility?
Yes, so that's an excellent question. Thank you. So basically, we are hoping to first complete our pilot scale, lab scale and pilot scale. And we are actively reaching out to all partners around Connecticut, hoping that we can set up our sites in Connecticut, because there are a lot of power plants, these carbon emitters. But the question for solar, we're really exploring, like if it's a good strategy, where in Connecticut we can do it, and it seems to be Mystic, seems to be a very nice location, because we did reach out to based on the suggestions from carbon containment lab and also the bio lab here, we did reach out to the company Mystic. So that seemed to be a very nice location for setting up our sites.
Hi, thank you. A follow-up question related to what you're doing with the algae. Keeping with principles of sustainability. Have you explored other uses other than animal feed, like other biomass or biomaterials uses for the algae? And if not, could you sort of explain the benefits of, I guess, speaking of a sustainable food person, why feed the cows algae instead of trying to get them all to eat grass, or use the algae or something else to make protein instead of still relying on animal protein?
Yes. Thank you so much for the question. It's a great question. So basically, for us, we think microalgae is a very sustainable source of proteins, because as shown in our slides, so far the dominant source of proteins is fish meal and also soybeans. So these are not sustainable as the population of the earth, can continue to grow. So we think microalgae is definitely sustainable. At the same time, it contains all, and we want to reduce the post-processing as much as possible, because a lot of the microalgae companies, they focus on making the extracts of microalgae because it does have a lot of EPA and astaxanthin, these kind of very highly valuable nutrients. But we think we want to keep the whole process carbon negative, at the same time providing a highly qualified protein source. So that's basically, yeah.
Last question, right?
All right, congratulations. You have a wonderful multidisciplinary team. And I'm curious, as you enter the next phase, you're trying to accomplish a lot. What do you see as the biggest risk in the next phase? And how are you designing your research and prototyping to try to ameliorate that?
Yes, so thank you so much for the great question. So we are very fortunate. We have a very strong team technically, and also we have people working on the commercialization. At this point, we're really focusing on developing our strategies, technology in the lab. But further, while in the same time, we're really hoping to reach out to Carbon Containment Lab and hopefully Climate Haven, so that we can establish local contacts, hopefully make an impact with locally in Connecticut. So hopefully by establishing all these contacts and, like from Yale Venture Prize and SciCity, we'll have more channels to help us build our team and reduce our risks going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Terry Tech. That is fast paced. We are getting through it. All right. So our next team, love to bring up General Biological, and this team makes mass market chemicals from sugar instead of oil. So again, representing the kind of diversity of schools, places, people that are around Yale. Like you're seeing people from all across the university here. So it's really thrilling for us to see all the different departments and areas represented. All right. And while they're getting ready, small fun fact about our judging panel. One of our judges won this prize many years ago. So if you can figure out who that is, and no, you don't, nobody who knows gets it. If you can figure out who it is and the partner that he had in it and the name of it, I'll take you out to lunch at the Carts. Okay. All right. You all ready? Great.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm David. Avi. We started General Biological, GB, to try to put a dent in decarbonizing the chemicals industry through industrial biotech. I guess everyone in this room knows that the bottom line here, which is oil, roughly speaking, bad. But the chemicals industry is uniquely hard to decarbonize because oil gives economic and climate headaches basically at every step of the process. So the input to the whole industry is oil. And then to do anything with that oil, you have to heat it up to about 800 C, which involves burning more oil. Once you convert some of that oil, you only get about half as the product you want. You have to figure out what to do with the other half, which is waste or unwanted byproducts, which involves burning more oil to deal with. The upshot of all this is that oil, petrochemicals presents itself to extremely centralized production in gigantic infrastructure and stainless steel, which is located really close to where the oil is produced. So this is all overseas. So once you make the product, you have to ship it on barges across the Atlantic or Pacific and you want to minimize the weight there. So you concentrate it to toxic levels and it gets diluted at point of use. So there's all these different inefficiencies, which ultimately result in chemical plants having an extremely high break-even uptime. Now, it sounds like a really technical metric to introduce early on, but this essentially means that a chemicals plant is up and running 24/7, 8 months of the year just to pay for itself. So this means, chemical plants make chemicals, they get it out the door, they sell into distribution, they lose margins there, they have to ship it overseas, they're burning fuel to make chemicals. Biomanufacturing, industrial biotech is really one of the few paths forward to decarbonizing this industry. This is essentially just giving cells sugar, they eat it, and then they give you the chemicals that you want. This all occurs at room temperature. You don't have to burn any fuel to get high heat. Has minimal toxic byproducts, basically just sugar and water. There's no cost of waste processing associated with it. And because you can use agricultural waste or renewable biomass as your inputs, we could do this on shores here in the United States, close to the point of use, and cut out the distribution, economic and climate costs, which are about 20% of the carbon footprint of the whole chemicals industry. And of course, this is building on chemistry that's about 100 years old. These are all novel enzymatic reactions.
So despite these advantages, biomanufactured chemicals have had sort of a slow penetration. And we see that the single biggest challenge biomanufacturing today are the economics of scale up. And there's a number of reasons to this, but we think the biggest culprit are the organisms that are favored for biomanufacturing today. Simply put, today's microorganisms are simply too slow growing and too prone to contamination. And so they require large stainless steel bioreactors that have to be shut down, emptied, and sterilized after every run, and they're running in batched operations. And so this is not only inefficient and energy intensive, but also this equipment is so expensive that only really the largest incumbents can afford to scale up a new biomanufacturing process. And even if they do manage to build a plant, they've had limited success because of poor unit economics and an inability to scale further to meet demand. We're currently working to scale up a new microorganism that we hope can address these problems. Our strain's ultra-fast growth rate and our media composition really dramatically reduces the risk of contamination, which enables a shift from stainless steel into plastic and from batch processes into continuous. And essentially what that means is that our reactors can have the same output as traditional bioreactors that are many, many times their size, all at a tiny fraction of the unit cost. And the implication of this is that we can start making commodity chemicals profitably at a very low scale, which is something that's very new, not only in biomanufacturing, but just in the chemicals industry as a whole, which allows for some cool possibilities.
Yeah, simply put, as David said, our plants with these processes have extremely low break-even uptime. So I'll just give you the bottom line here. We could build a plant the size of this room that produces 500 tons a year of product that would pay itself off in a matter of weeks, and we'd ship it down to customers down the street. This is profitable at low volumes. It allows us to develop higher value specialty markets early on and co-located with use. So we're sort of hitting on all the problems that we see this industry has faced in the past decades.
Part of our advantage is that we can start small and de-risk scale up, and we're we feel it's very important not to just be a platform company and to actually sell products and make a chemical. And so it doesn't make any sense to start with a chemical at small volumes that people only buy by the rail car. So we've chosen succinic acid, shown here, as our first target molecule. Succinic acid has been explored before as like a bio-based platform molecule for the chemicals industry. But we like it a lot because it exists at many different scales, from fine chemicals to global commodities. And all along those scales, it has a lot of opportunities to solve problems by being a bio-based and biodegradable replacement for actually some really nasty processes like heavy equipment de-icing and industrial chelating agents and detergents, and all the way up to biodegradable plastics. Polybutylene succinate is of particular interest.
David and I met at Yale. Julian, who's unfortunately not here, we looked together, papers together, built cars and stuff together. That's the three of us with a bioreactor. We essentially, like David said, and we've emphasized, we need to sell chemical products. So we're not going to take the same approach that other companies have taken, where we just make a molecule and hope people buy a molecule. Very few people in this world are actually looking for a molecule. They're looking for a product. They're looking for something to add to their concrete or to their steel or to their water. And so product development is sort of its own can of worms. $5,000 essentially will let us accelerate that product development timeline, a lot of which lies outside our core skill set, which is scaling biomanufacturing. And so this 25K will let us outsource a lot of that and go through the materials qualifications processes and get our products in people's hands fast. Thanks.
All right, judges, are you ready? Great.
Quick question, clarification. Is the need here to create a new facility, or are there existing chemical facilities that you could see when you kind of get to scale that you would transform to produce this product?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So all these incumbents essentially operate their equipment for free. The statement we made earlier about unit economics not working out is sort of a half truth. In many of these cases, the unit economics does work out. They just can't make enough of the stuff. And so even if you did repurpose existing capital, it would support the existing host organisms, which just can't make the rail cars of stuff you need every year. And if you can only make mid-market volumes of chemicals, there's some chemicals markets for which demand only exists in ginormous volumes. So there's some equipment that we could repurpose for things like feedstock processing, especially with lignocellulose and paper and stuff like that. But like, our goal is to spin up our own infrastructure from the ground up, and we can do it cheap.
How much customer research have you done around, the markets that you're hoping to sell into, and what's the response been so far to the concept and the new opportunity?
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of exploring with customers, not only distributors who of course say, we'll buy whatever you send us because that's their job, but also with people who are actually using our products in water treatment, would be using our products in water treatment as chelating agents, and then the concrete businesses, super plasticizers and set retardants. And so we have been exploring some of this ourselves. At this point, we started some strain engineering. We're fairly confident that we can make the molecule. So we will actually be pouring some concrete like in our driveway and performing ASTM slump tests, although hopefully not for much longer.
Yeah. So we know if we can make the products, people will buy it because we can sell it cheap and we can get it to them on time. I mean, the thing that no one really talks about is just like reliability of supply. Like you could sell the same stuff to the same people, and if you just promise that you will deliver it to them when you say you will, they'll pay you for that. They'll switch over from whoever they're buying from for that. So this bio-based, biodegradable stuff, that's great for us, but I'm not sure it really helps with the sales pitches to customers.
Could you just quickly describe your inputs a little more? What's going into making this, and where is it coming from, and what you anticipate the costs being there?
So our bacteria need sugars, essentially. Right now, what we're working with, because we haven't had much time to explore like feedstock pre-processing, is byproducts of the sugar industry like sugar beet molasses that are made here and don't necessarily compete with the existing food supplies. Our end goal for this is to figure out a enzymatic pretreatment for cellulosic biomass, so corn stover, wood chips, things like this, that really are agricultural waste or perennial biomass crops like switchgrass, and that would require we'll just cellulase pretreatment, which is fairly standard.
And to add some color to the costing there, at scale, we can sell a molecule for about $4,000 a ton. We can probably make it for a third of that. So that's sort of in line with the kind of doubling gross margins of the chemical industry there, and hopefully we cut out the distribution costs too. So that will triple margin on the whole business.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Justin.
One last question, kind of a open-ended one here, not unlike Lindsay's question to the first group, to Tyree Tech. Have you thought about if you succeed, what the consequences of that might be? If you make margins better for certain industries that are quote unquote, not better for the world, that, make it easier for other things to be produced that you from your sustainability brain would not want to happen. Could you design your molecules to perpetuate certain industries or advantage certain industries that you believe in?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't think we've thought too much about that. I guess the way I would respond to that question is, once we figure out that we can solve the same problems with better products and we become a product development company, then hopefully we're in the position where we can just make the products ourselves. And so there's, we start in chemicals, but the ultimate goal is that we could use this sort of pool of talent to decarbonize all heavy industries. If you sell into like, concrete, we found, for example, that our chemical doesn't just inhibit corrosion, or one potential avenue is our chemical doesn't just inhibit corrosion in the current line of concretes, but also the carbon negative concretes. So, once you become a product development company, it allows you to work in tandem with the new wave of products, which are rethinking all kinds of other industries in a more sustainable way. So, you want to work with forward-thinking people. If you're product focused, I think you could do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Just reflecting on this, another fun fact, I actually competed in this competition a number of years ago as well. And thinking on the kind of ways that the teams are answering questions and responding is like, you can also see the kind of incredible growth and the improvement, at least on a personal scale, of how I responded to these to seeing how the teams did. Their remarkable amount of talent and knowledge. No, this is the first year we're back in person, if folks, since 2019 as well, sort of coming back together and seeing these rooms and seeing people coming together. You know, as this team comes together as well, 2 nights ago, we were all over at Connecticut Innovations for our first climate tech mixer, celebrating the launch of Climate Haven, which is a climate tech incubator that's launching in New Haven. Ryan on our judging panel is leading that. And we're right now at a moment where, like, you know, you see 100 people in this room, you saw 200, 250 in those rooms, just a mix of entrepreneurs, investors, folks from Yale, people from the state. There's just an incredible enthusiasm right now and an engagement and a vibe that's happening in New Haven. And I hope you can appreciate it. For those who've been here a long time, like myself, it's so heartening to see, and heartening to see another team ready to come up. Know these gentlemen pretty well, Carbon Loop. And they create a circular economy by cheaply sequestering carbon at low temperatures from industry and producing high value byproducts. So welcome. Well, since we have a moment, I'm just going to I do want to just introduce our judges. We went through first names, but it would be great to actually give you a little bit more context on the people that are here while we get this started. So Lindsay Green, Lindsay, can you wave and say hello to everybody? Lindsay was actually my classmate at the School of Management and was the person that you met and saw, and you were like, I'm not sure we should be in the same school because you're way more talented than I am. She is now the president and CEO of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So she oversees a vast operation in New York that's a home for a lot of different people, entrepreneurs, development, growing economy in New York City. Sophie Beckham is, hello, everyone to say hi to Sophie. Sophie is the VP and Chief Sustainability Officer of International Paper, and she's a graduate of the Yale School of Forestry, now the Yale School of the Environment. Do you go by FES or YSC? She's still partial to FES. That sometimes changes. All right, these gentlemen are ready. I will get to the rest of the judges in our next break.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Harrison Meyer.
I'm Connor Rooney.
And I'm Perry Backus. And we are Carbon Loop. Carbon Loop creates a circular economy for carbon dioxide.
So I think I'm endlessly thankful for the other groups who've introduced you to a lot of these concepts because it makes my idea a lot easier. But essentially what we're going to talk about today are the hard to abate industries. So while it'd be nice to just stop fossil fuel production overnight, that's not the reality. There's a bunch of industries that need fossil fuels or carbon as an input to their processes. We're talking about cement and steel who need high heat applications that can only be done with high energy dense fossil fuels, or we're talking about chemicals and plastics that use the carbon atom in their process. So while it'd be great to just stop the production of fossil fuels and use of it, to actually create these products in the future and create a sustainable and livable future, we're going to need to put carbon capture on those processes and then upcycle the carbon that we capture into usable products that de-risk or de-rely those products on virgin feedstocks. And that's where Carbon Loop comes in.
And so to create a circular economy for carbon dioxide, we make carbon capture and conversion accessible, scalable, and circular.
Existing carbon removal technologies are expensive and create no useful products. The current price of point source carbon capture, where CO2 is taken from an industrial emitter, is at the cheapest $47 per ton of CO2. For direct air capture, where CO2 is taken from the atmosphere, it's over $200 per ton. These prohibitive prices mean that the current scale of carbon capture is just a drop in the bucket compared to industrial emissions. There's an urgent need for scalable, cheaper carbon conversion processes that make renewable carbon feedstocks. This is where Carbon Loop comes in. We believe that we can fill this gap. So we are a carbon conversion infrastructure company. We are developing technology from Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. They have demonstrated the first low temperature integrated CO2 capture and conversion process to methanol. We will use this technology to create modular capture and conversion units that capture CO2 with a state-of-the-art sorbent that capture CO2 with less energy requirement. This CO2 can then be converted into methanol with a new thermocatalytic process. This methanol can then be sold as a renewable green methanol for the production of sustainable chemicals. We believe that Carbon Loop can make a massive impact. Our ambition is to convert and capture 1 gigatons of CO2 by 2035.
So we basically do carbon conversion as a service. We work with both industry and chemicals. With point source emitters, we capture their carbon dioxide and they get carbon credits in return. And for chemicals, we provide green chemicals like methanol that can be then leveraged into green petrochemical production, green sustainable aviation fuel, as well as sustainable shipping. And in return, they create these green products. Overall, we offer a plug and play model where we de-risk carbon conversion, creating all the infrastructure on site for this conversion process.
So while I'm going to try to stay away from being a doomer right now, the climate crisis is accelerating. That also means the opportunity for carbon capture is accelerating. Well, we're going to start with a proof of concept at a 5 megawatt site. We're going to move to the 25,000 industrial emitters in the US that need this service. In the beginning, we're going to be selling our methanol to sustainable aviation fuel consortiums, major airliners that have put a $100 million fund together to buy green methanol or sustainable aviation fuel generally, or conscious corporates who are willing to pay a green premium. Ultimately, our addressable market by 2050 is the $4.5 trillion carbon capture market, along with the $737 billion clean methanol and sustainable aviation fuel market. So it's endless opportunities you can deploy.
So Carbon Loop is uniquely positioned to create a platform for carbon conversion. With our lower cost of capture, our cost of capture is around $39 per ton compared to the cheapest one out there at $47 to $200 a ton. More importantly, because we can deal with thermocatalytic capture, we can actually scale this across multiple industries and handle a lot of industrial pollutants that bio-based or other systems cannot handle. This allows us to actually create high valuable products such as methanol that can actually be leveraged into sustainable aviation fuel, sustainable products, and sustainable shipping. To do this, Carbon Loop anticipates 3 different revenue streams with an estimated $40.8 million in revenue in year 3 after our MVP launch. For industry, we provide a cheaper, more scalable, more resilient capture process where we get $20 per ton of CO2. For sequestration, we actually create available carbon feedstocks to allow sequestration companies to de-risk their operations. And for chemicals, we provide green chemical feedstocks. Overall, for each dollar create an economic value, there are roughly 50 kilograms of CO2 removed. It's working anymore. Oh, okay. We are, as a team, are specifically situated to actually do this. Between the 3 of us, we have over 10 years of chemistry, material science, and engineering research, as well as industry experience. Connor has authored over 10 academic publications in carbon conversion, while Perry has worked on product commercialization for a variety of clean tech startups. And I have worked for carbon conversion and carbon capture startups, helping raise $1 million with the X Prize and $1 million in the Earthshot Prize.
That's perfect. Let's skip the slide. Okay, so essentially this is where we are today. We are on a 2-product approach. We're trying to take our integration platform in-house and actually develop it so we can scale and deploy our MVP. We're also building on the research from PNNL to bring our IP in-house on the solvent and catalyst design. The SciCity Fellowship, along with the Sustainable Venture Prize, will help us bridge the gap between now and our pre-seed round, which will help us deploy our first MVP. So that is Carbon Loop. We're really thankful for you guys for being here. We're willing to take any questions now.
Thank you.
All right, judges. Who's up first? All right.
No, go ahead.
Just to, thank you all. Just to clarify, the statement you made at the end, you're trying to bring your IP in-house right now and a different piece of the upstream product development, I guess. Could you, like, how, I guess, essential are either of those 2 processes to your sort of ongoing viability?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. And there's a lot of information here, which is why we didn't elaborate too much on it. We have a relationship with PNNL, so Pacific Northwest National Labs. They have patents granted on this work, but we're working on taking their research in-house. So we have a research and pre-commercialization license we're working on right now, but they need to do solvent design to bring the solvent costs down, and some catalyst design to make it more deployable. They also need to take their platform that they've built and make it essentially able to integrate with any system that already exists or will be deployed later. So we are going to help them essentially do that work in-house, bring that IP or build on their IP to bring IP in-house. And so there is still an opportunity for us to license them, I think in the next 6 months, but we're going to work on becoming less reliant on them by actually bringing the IP in-house.
Thinking of your end product, sustainable aviation fuel, is methanol the type of fuel that easily integrates into the existing aviation market and existing engines, or are you relying on a lot of evolution in the aviation industry in order to be able to accept that product?
Yeah, that's a great question. So methanol is a key precursor that can be converted into aviation fuel, which is longer chain hydrocarbons, using known chemical, processes. So that like green carbon feedstock is critical, and that is kind of the bottleneck today in sustainable aviation fuels that come from CO2, is actually converting the CO2 into alcohols like methanol, which can then be upgraded using known processes to kerosenes.
Got it. So just super quick follow-up question. So they need the methanol in order to get ultimately to the sustainable aviation fuel that gets in the engines.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
And
thank
then
you.
for sustainable shipping, however, methanol, it can be used directly. So for example, a few weeks ago, Maersk announced a partnership to purchase green methanol for their shipping production. And so you can actually do retrofits on current high volume shipping with methanol production. And so that's why we're targeting not only sustainable aviation fuel, but sustainable shipping and sustainable petrochemicals. We have the three targeted system with the actual production of what we're making.
And methanol is a $30 billion market cap chemical market. So it's one of the biggest commodity chemicals.
I want to sneak in 2 quick questions here. One, high level, what does this look like as a business model? Which parts are you doing and which parts are you relying on other partners or other companies to do when this is at scale? And secondly, this is probably a quick one. You mentioned adsorption costs and capture costs, but my understanding is that desorption often is like the most energy intensive part of this process. And is this technology actually making adsorption more efficient or desorption as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is the desorption. To kind of simplify it, I guess we call it the capture costs. But yes, that's exactly right. And so this new solvent design has less water. And so what that means is when you heat it up to release CO2, the heat capacity is lower. And so you require less energy input. So what they call in the industry, the reboiler duty for the carbon CO2 release is lower. And so that's kind of the novel improvement that they've made.
And to answer your other question, bringing some of this technology in-house, what we do is these modular units are what we basically provide to industry. So we're going to build these modular units, work with it and provide the energy for these modular units and do all the capture and conversion on site. So it looks like us having these basically modular plants that then attach to industry, and then they get some of the carbon credits and some of the value there while we get some in return. So that's how the carbon loop basically works.
And just to elaborate on that, like we're not naive on infrastructure projects. Like these are big projects, cost a lot of money. I think the easiest way to get into market is to do some solvent work and work on integration systems. So you're working on retrofits for existing point source capture systems. Not entirely sure how it'll play out in the long run. I mean, ideally we'd be doing the capture and conversion ourselves, but I think that that's the easiest break into market.
Many thanks to Carbon Loop.
Thank you.
All right, so finishing the introduction of all of our judges, this is just a part of an ecosystem of support in Connecticut for entrepreneurs and innovators. And we've got a number of people here from Yale and from the state and from the local area who are serving as judges. So Justin Freiberg, if everybody could wave to Justin, is the managing director of the Carbon Containment Lab. So you do hear him asking a lot of geeky questions about carbon. That's because he's a real geek about carbon. Sarah Harari right there is like the hub of innovation at the Connecticut Green Bank, along with Brian Garcia. She's a joint degree graduate from the School of Management and the School of the Environment. Justin graduated from the School of the Environment as well. But like, if you want to get into anything energy, if you want to think about the grid, if you want to go deep there, you can go talk to Sarah and she'll tell you more than you would ever want to know, actually. And then Ryan Dings. Ryan is the newest addition to this community, and Ryan is he's the CEO and he's the president of Climate Haven, the new climate tech incubator that we have in the city here. And he's also a venture partner at Connecticut Innovation. So thrilled to have these folks here to support and listen to the entrepreneurs, and thrilled to have our next entrepreneur come up, who's going to talk to us about Karuna Foods. And Karuna, it makes the first microbial protein-based dog food with the least carbon footprint, offering nourishment without any adverse effects. So please welcome Karuna.
Name is SJ. Hi, my name is SJ and Abhishek is joining us through Zoom. We have created a sustainable and nutritious pet food that is good for the pets, their humans, and the planet. We make use of carbon negative microbial protein that our partners produce through fermentation of industrial methane and carbohydrates in presence of microbes. Over the years, I have rescued hundreds, if not thousands of animals, but felt disgusted by what I was feeding them. Most pet food is made from sick or diseased animals and post-slaughter waste that is chemically rendered into meat meals. On top of it, there's a huge environmental cost too. In United States alone, the industry is responsible for over 64 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. For those reasons, we created a new class of pet food, which is embodied by our name as well, because Karuna means compassion in Sanskrit. The judges have samples in front of them. We meet and exceed AAFCO recommendation, which is industry standard. Our pet food is vet nutritionist formulated, human grade, free from antibiotics, hormones, or allergens. But you don't have to believe in me. See yourself. We have fed it to hundreds of dogs, and all of them love it. And when humans learned about it, they wanted to buy it. For instance, Robin is a founder of Large Animal Rescue with over 3 million followers. And the first questions off the bat from him were where he could buy it and how much it's going to cost him. We know we have an incredible product. That's why we have started developing a market for it. After carefully considering tactical and strategic factors and customer feedback, we have decided to launch in Australia. The most prominent reasons are the industry is self-regulated in the country. Australia has one of the highest pet ownership rates. Australians have one of the biggest spender on pet food. And most importantly, 1/3 of the Australians are willing to pay premium for sustainable product. Australian pet food market is $3.2 billion in size and growing at 3% annual rate. We believe we have potential to capture $75 million market share while doing financial and social good. Like many developed countries, Australian pet food market is dominated by large multinational companies such as Mars and Nestle. In recent years, several startups have come up with their novel solution for a prevailing problem in the industry. The problem with these solutions, they're environmental nightmare. These companies make use of human-grade cuts of the meat and transport their food across the country in climate-controlled box every week, which makes them 10 to 30 times more environmentally taxing. On contrary, a solution fares significantly better in terms of sustainability and value generated per dollars. Our go-to-market strategy involves collaboration with the vets and shelters. As we learned during the discovery phase of the venture, that people stick with the food that is recommended by their vets or was being fed to their pets by their shelters or breeder before they were brought home. This will, we are going to provide these products at low margins to these entities so we can lock in the customers who are going to make recurring purchases over the time. Our aim is to get thousands of them in first year. So we can, that would enable our omni-channel strategy, which involves placing it in physical and digital marketplaces. We have had conversations with Some of them, such as Pet Circle, who have agreed to try us out and do try if we could show initial traction. On cost front, we are going to manufacture in India, which would allow us access to economical labor force and ingredient supply. The recent free trade agreement between the two countries will allow us to have zero tariffs and help us in enjoying the significantly better margins from very beginning. I'm working on this venture with my mentor and fellow animal lover, Abhishek Sinha. Abhishek is founder and CEO of Good Dot, which is the largest plant-based meat company in India and also exports to several countries, including Australia. There's several synergies between Good Dot and Karuna. I took a year-long break from the grad school so I could work on this venture and build a strong relationship with ingredient providers, government organizations, co-manufacturers, and vet experts. And we were able to complete a pilot with just $2,000 and prove and validate our concept. The startup deal price could not have come at better time as we are embarking on a clinical trial, which will involve 8 dogs and will go on for 3 weeks and starts in May end. Once it's going to cost us $23,000, $16,000 of that money goes to the CRO and the remaining $7,000 in creating the samples and shipping it. Once validated, we are expecting to launch in Australia sometime around February next year. Our ask, we want you to help us and provide us guidance in making this world a better place for the pets, one meal at a time.
All right, judges. First question. Justin.
Thank you, SJ. Really great. In terms of the methane and the microbes that convert the methane into this protein, can you just speak to anything you know right now about the footprint that the reduction, the delta from the 4Ds to the methane-based protein?
So it is carbon negative. So I believe our partners, String Bio, said like they take like it makes it 20 to 30% less the protein less carbon intensive. So basically they are taking the carbon, but there are externalities which make it bigger, but then it is 20 to 30 times less, 30% lesser carbon intensive than the natural stuff like other protein sources. And it has all 9 essential amino acids, and it is pretty high in protein content, which is around 70%.
You highlighted that several of your competitors are offering sustainable food, to the market that is perhaps not sustainable because of the transportation and processing and the carbon intensity of that. But how does yours compare if you are manufacturing it in India and then shipping it to Australia?
Thank you for the question, and I expected it. There's no manufacturing in Australia, and I'll give you 2 quick examples. A couple of months back, they closed the last paper manufacturing facility there because it's expensive. And the largest plant-based meat company called V2 Food, and it had raised $130 million, also shut their facilities because it doesn't make business sense. So they're already like they produce the raw materials, send it to another country, and then bring back the finished product. So basically, we are removing half of it and bringing final product straight to the country, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out how to do it so cheap that we will be able to bring it to Australia, but we are trying to solve one problem at a time.
Your description of the project is very comprehensive. I think one area I'd like to hear a little bit more about is marketing, and how will you have a sort of differentiated value proposition to the end consumer, recognizing that you're kind of competing in a somewhat niche market today, and your value proposition as described to us is very much connected to the carbon as well as the deliciousness of the food. But how will the end consumer know sort of about the multiple sustainability benefits of what you're putting together?
So the first consumer base that we are going to attract are vegetarian and vegans because it's completely plant-based. A lot of them go for the food which, like they want to buy food which is not animal source based, but then they don't have any options. So a lot of them buy it. And then if you go to the Facebook groups where there are like thousands of people, like they don't have good options. So they're buying, for instance, there's a company called Wild Earth in the US, and they went to Shark Tank US version, and they're doing like $10 to $15 million business based on just the vegan and vegetarian population who want to eat food like this because they want to first remove the cruelty, but also have like lesser carbon footprint. If you see here, it's not just the carbon footprint. This is from like, we haven't done our LCA because it costs a lot and we don't have final formulation yet because we are experimenting, but you can see it's the amount of land it takes, the water and other sustainability factors. Like, and because we are using a carbon negative protein source, we are going to have like significantly better footprint. So it's the first customer base is that, and then we are going to build on the sustainability side of things where like go to the farmers market and stuff. And then once we have enough swell of the customer base, then we can do the guerrilla marketing kind of thing. Like I'm not planning on just do D2C bombarding on social media because may not work.
All right, that's final question.
Thank you. I did eat one. It has a very mild or neutral taste. I've never eaten pet food before, but I was inspired today. Last question. Who are your competitors in the sort of the plant-based dry food market? I live in a place that's very prone to be partial to the fresh pet food, like feed your dog what you eat, etc. How do you compete against like fresh, but also are there other people already doing it?
So the people who are buying fresh food, the number of those people is really small. Like if you see, it's like $140 billion industry, like these fresh to eat, like non-mom foods in the US, a farmer's dog is really small. So only specific type of people are buying it, but our competitors are the people who are already working with the dry food because it is nutritious, it is healthy, it provides all the nutrition required by the dog. It's just that these people are trying to feed what humans eat, and that's why like we are going to do the same thing by saying I can eat it, that you don't have to like get the meat that comes from the animals that are raised for the humans and give it to them, because then we wouldn't be able to support all those extra dogs and cats that are being adopted. It's not sustainable. Like if you want to do a mass solution and democratize it, like we cannot do it in the same way. So first, it's not possible. And second, the competitors that are there, like WeDog and Wild Earth, they are specifically in the US. I don't think there is anyone in Australia. So that's why like it's a perfect market for us like to start it because it's like US and Canada, and we'll be going to other places. Like Abhishek has done, launch in other places, but then build a strong base and learn from our mistakes in a safe place.
Thank you, Karuna Foods. Can I get one big hearty round of applause for all the entrepreneurs that just pitched? We got here on time and on budget. We are on schedule still. There's a couple of things I'm going to ask everybody to do. The judges, you have a very difficult decision to make, but first you get to come up here and take a picture, one together, which we're going to snap. Audience members, you get to vote. So there is a voting. Can someone in the SciCity team point to the voting box? It is back there, over there, the audience choice. So you get to get up. Thank you, Zoe. Look at that. Nice display. We're going to you all get to vote on these. So put your vote in and that will be counted as well. And we also want to stay in our seats because there's another round of amazing pitches. We've got another group of judges right here, a host and 4 other teams. So vote, stay right here. We're going to get off the stage and we'll move on to the next team. All right.
So welcome everyone. You've heard 4 incredible pitches. You're about to hear 4 more incredible pitches. Just wanted to give a shout out to our Miller judges today. Jenny Fielding, co-founder and managing partner at The Fund. Rashmi Pensay, director of North America Social Impact at MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. Matthew Archuleta, investment associate at Connecticut Innovations. Zach LaPalme, senior analyst and co-portfolio manager at North Sound Management. And Zoe Zhang, researcher at Yale Center on Climate Change and Health. We have the same format, 5-minute pitches, 5 minutes for Q&A. Our first pitch up is Banofi Leather. Banofi Leather is disrupting the leather industry by making banana fiber leather, vegan plant-based leather from crop waste.
So before I begin, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry, and then I worked at McKinsey for 3 years. I came back to grad school with a vision to change the materials of today, to create the materials of the future, and Banofi Leather does that. We create materials that make you go bananas. So what do we really do? We have developed this novel technology to convert banana crop waste, which is what you see on the left, which is the part of the tree that is left after the fruit has been harvested. And we convert this material into what you see on the right, Banofi, our banana fiber leather. We're the first and only company in a space of bio-leather players to commercialize the use of the banana crop waste. So why do we do this? The environmental impact of the leather industry is awful. 1 cow leather handbag requires 10,000 liters of water to produce, and the carbon equivalent charging 18,000 smartphones. But emissions is just one part of the problem. In fact, 90% of leather is tanned using toxic carcinogens like chromium that are then deposited untreated into rivers. These 2 images are pictures from rivers in India, from where I'm from, which are polluted by the waste from leather tanneries. In comparison, our Banofi leather has a 95% reduction in water used, a 90% reduction in carbon emissions, and a 100% reduction in toxic waste. So how do we do this? We are tapping into the opportunity that is the 100 million tons of banana crop waste. 80% of this banana plant is wasted every harvest, and less than 10% of this waste is utilized. So we use this waste to create Banofi leather. So I know Shade has distributed some samples, and we also have some for the audience. So the material in front of you is vegan and cruelty-free, looks, feels, and smells like animal leather, upcycles waste, and as you can see, is available in a variety of colors and textures. We can mimic cow leather, sheep, goat, crocodile, and others. We also have a provisional patent on our technology, and we're in the process of filing 3 patents this April. So I won't get into the details of our process, but we've gone through hundreds of iterations over the last year, and the final product that you see in front of you is made up of 60% banana crop waste, and then the other 40% is 40 other components, including rubber, gum arabic, starch, glycerol, that are all treated at pressure, temperatures, and pHs to combine into this material. We've also conducted extensive testing, so physical testing like tear strength, tensile strength, chemical testing like our material is chromium, lead, and phthalate free, unlike animal leather. And we're also PETA vegan certified. So I'm excited to say that we're a material science company. We're employing a business model, and we've been sending samples for the last year to about 30 global brands. These brands have made more than 2 or 3 prototypes of bags, wallets, belts, and we're excited to say that they're all in advanced stages of placing orders with us today. So I have some friends here who are going to pass around a prototype made by a brand in London and some card holders. And then we also created a bunch of notebooks for Yale University as our proof of concept, which generated about $6,000 in revenue for us. We also have some products for the audience, which they're going to pass around too. So our journey began when we were fortunate enough last year to secure a grant of about $40,000. We used this money. I went back to India during the summer of last year to find a team. The team includes experts across leather technology, polymer science. And in a short time, in May last year, we registered the company, found a place, bought machines, figured out the supply chain, partnered with 20 local farmers to source our banana crop waste, July to this year is when we did active prototyping, and we put the 2 years of research that we had collected to use to develop this product. And we started sending samples to brands. In December, we got our first order for notebooks, and we also got incubated by the Ministry of Agriculture in India because we work with smallholder farmers. And in March this year, I'm happy to say we got our first material order, and we also got interest from a global top 3 automotive player. So why do we need the Miller Prize? It's super critical for Banoffee to scale our manual process, is what you can see on the left. And so we want to upgrade equipment to ensure process consistency around color, thickness. And we also want to invest in R&D to make our material ready for something that's elastic like car seats. So we have a 16-member team of experts, all based full-time in India. I moved back in May once I graduate to be with my team. And we also have 5 Yale students who've been helping us part-time. I'm also happy to say that our team is 60% women. So thank you, everybody, and join us in creating the leather for the future.
Fantastic presentation. That was really great. Can you talk a little bit about the price parity and then also, feeling the bag? It definitely feels a little bit different. So our customers, what's the reaction to it for the most part?
Yeah, absolutely. So this bag has gone through a lot of iterations, and we're still in the process of active R&D. So that's why we've been sending these samples. We get feedback on stitching, creasing, and we've now developed samples that are ready for market. So they're a little softer from what you can see in the swatch card. Around where we stand to other bio-based leathers and price parity. So our Banoffee leather is very unique. There are companies doing research on mycelium in California, but what makes us really unique is because we use waste, we're a lot more affordable, and we can price this at the same price as animal leather, which suddenly makes us a lot more scalable as well. And it also makes us more eco-friendly. We're more expensive than plastic leather. So we're about $20 is plastic leather. We're about $40, but then other plant-based leathers range from $50 to $300 a meter.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
On a related note, I guess, what's the durability of this banana leather versus the other vegan leather alternatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done aging tests that mimic conditions of 5 years with humidity, pressure. And so we've passed all of our aging tests. As we prototype some of this, we're learning about wear and tear. So somebody dropped coffee on a bag and we realized that that wasn't working. So we had to go back to R&D and figure things out. So it's been a process of figuring out what works and what doesn't, but we've cleared aging tests of up to 5 years, which is what's typically industry standard.
2 questions. One, is this beholden to a growth season in any way, shape, or form? And can you talk about the sales cycle from the first time you interact with a partner, for them to accept, for them to prototype, and all how long that takes?
Yeah, absolutely. So for instance, we started sending samples to brands in November last year. They were free samples. People started making products in December. And we've realized that brands want to at least use the bag for 3 months. And so that's why March is when we got our first material order. That's some of the smaller boutiques that are willing to take a risk. Bigger brands take longer, so about a year at least of using the bag, handling the bag, because it is a new material. We've also realized that there are certain brands which are okay with the handmade look, but a lot of them want that thickness consistency, color consistency, which will come when we upgrade our machine. So they're like, it's good for 1 sheet, but when you give me 10 sheets, it's not as consistent as it would be if it were machine manufactured. So that's kind of what we hope to focus on and improve in our sales cycle. We've also started talking to the top 3 automotive players. So they're excited about the potential because there's nobody doing banana based leather in the market. And then in terms of the beholden to growth, did you mean crop? Like when?
Yes.
Yeah. So banana is great because it's a perennial crop, which means no seasons. We get waste all the time. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess you talked a little bit about the auto market. What are your target markets? Is it, if we look 5-10 years down the road, is it mostly bags? Is it a mix of bags and auto? And then second question is, on the competitive front, are any of the big, traditional other guys getting into this in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will go to that slide because there are a lot of brand collaborations happening in the industry. So our focus is definitely fashion, and within fashion bags, at least for the next 2 years. What we want to do is in these 2 years, develop our material so that's good enough for car seats, which is the highest quality required. And that's kind of what we want to do in parallel to creating bags. There is a lot of interest. So Pineapple Leather, for example, has partnered with H&M, Nike, Hugo Boss. BMW has decided to put cactus leather in the seats of all their electric vehicles. But when we've started having conversations, we've realized the same way a brand has multiple leather providers, they will have multiple bio leather providers as well. And so there is a lot of room, and we've been getting interest. So we know that there is space for us in the market.
Great. Let's give a round of applause for Joy. Great. And up next, we have Cachet DNA, rebuilding the backbone of precision medicine, starting at the most fundamental level, storing and accessing the biomolecules of life. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Heather Williams. I'm a clinical laboratory geneticist, but most importantly, I'm a Yale EMBA class of 23. So let's talk a little bit about this revered institution that we are at. Particularly, let's talk about Yale SOM, where I've been lucky enough to be taught to become a leader for business and society. And that is very close to our mission at CASH. Our mission is to make genetic data widely accessible and useful by providing the best format for storing biomolecules in the world. So I told you I was a geneticist, so we're going to talk about genetics. It's everywhere. It's in the news, we're going to sequence babies. It's the new frontier. It's replaced science. We're even using it in the arts to solve some of history's greatest mysteries with Beethoven. And it's even in the news when it's wrong. I've gone ahead and corrected it there for you. It's mutation, not gene. But it is genomic medicine, this iterative process that combines discovery and diagnosis that is driving therapy options for patients where we wouldn't otherwise be able to cure them. And here we see just last month, little Teddy was cured of a fatal disorder that took advantage of this process. But I'm here with a PSA. We're actually failing patients. Not everyone is as lucky as Teddy that I just mentioned. This failed promise that not everyone has access to sequencing informed care is very easy to see when you compare us to the UK, where everybody who has a rare disease or cancer is being offered whole genome sequencing. In comparison to the United States, where your access to this technology is highly dependent on whether or not you have insurance, whether or not you have financial means to pay for that service, and frankly, where in the United States you're being treated. That's not to say we aren't doing something. Right now, we're seeing this explosion in minimally invasive medicine. That is a simple blood draw is actually improving access, participation, and time to diagnosis. And the most popular forms of this are the use of non-invasive prenatal screening in pregnancy and liquid biopsy to diagnose cancer, and also predisposition tests to surveil your predilection to possibly developing cancer in the future. So I told you that everybody's excited about sequencing billions of genomes, but how is this managed behind the scenes? I'll give you a hint. It's not great, but I'll let Mike take it from here.
So in the basements and backup warehouses supporting many of the labs that are focused on these clinical and research applications that Heather mentioned are sample repositories. These are critical, but as you can see in the image, it's a hefty undertaking to manage all of these samples. We talked to over 100 labs and revealed 3 main pain points. The first theme is around hoarding. Every lab wants to keep their samples just in case. Companies like Quest Diagnostics receive over 140,000 samples each day, and they want to keep these samples indefinitely to hedge their bets for the future as our tools and understanding of biology improves. Second is around cost. These samples are too expensive to store indefinitely and also too expensive to sequence. So many groups like the Broad Institute go as far as throwing away the samples because they can't justify those costs. And lastly, just because of how nascent this industry still is, many groups are hacking their way together with those freezers that we showed on the last slide by still using do-it-yourself practices. So there's a huge opportunity to bring everyone up to the best standards and not just let the better capitalized groups survive. So our vision really at CASH here is to disrupt these siloed freezers with our new approach to storage, which is more scalable, sustainable, and standardized. Really at the core, our peer-reviewed and proprietary technology enables us to bring storage to room temperature and unlock possibilities across precision medicine. We've looked across the landscape of molecular pathology storage solutions, and our approach is unique in that it is the only room temperature scalable approach for storing DNA and RNA, which are really the backbone of this industry. There's a huge opportunity with nucleic acids is really this common intermediate across life sciences applications, with the precision medicine market being as large as 65 billion. But we're hyper-focused right now on DNA and RNA biobanks who are storing massive amounts of samples that were immediately poised to transfer over their infrastructure. And more specifically, CAP and CLIA certified labs are really feeling the pinch of making sure they're staying compliant with their sample storage needs. So we're addressing them early on.
So the Miller Prize, what are we going to do with these funds? I told you we wanted to make genetic data widely accessible and useful. So we're going to work with these resource constrained academic medical centers around the globe. We're going to work with pathologists and geneticists to provide sequencing where it would not otherwise be available due to financial constraints.
Our roadmap is all about reinforcing our mission to make genetic data more widely accessible and usable. So building off our confirmatory studies of doing sequencing analysis at the Illumina Accelerator, we're really geared up towards distributing product more widely by positioning as the best DNA and RNA storage format in the world. Beyond that, we want to build our capabilities as a centralized service model to offer more than just storage, but also sequencing and downstream analysis. And we're really driving towards a world where there's a network of these instruments that really enable storage at a higher capacity and decentralize this so that every lab has this opportunity.
So let's stop writing about this problem that we have in the genetic community and do something about it. We've assembled a wonderful team that you see here who are going to bring CASH to life. We have decades of experience across synthetic biology, genetics, and genetic testing. Thank you very much. We're excited to take your questions.
Congratulations. I saw that you've assembled a team of contractors and advisors. Can you talk a little bit about more about the team structure and how the decisions are made? And a second question would be, what would be your, can you talk a little bit more about your competitive edge compared to other labs such as MIT, Harvard? Thank you.
Sure. I can kick off the one on the team structure. So I'm Mike, I'm the CEO. Been really fortunate to surround myself with experts like Heather, who have worked really on the forefront of clinics, helping to make these critical decisions for patients. I'm joined by my co-founder, James Banal, who did his postdoc at MIT, and Mark Bate's nanotechnology lab. He's really the driver for us on the R&D front, developing new encapsulation chemistries for composition of matter and also methods that build out our IP portfolio. And Lee Organic is the world specialist in DNA stability and retrieval. So we're really trying to find the best people that's able to bring this technology to market. In terms of decision-making, we're a scrappy, young, early team, and we all work together to really let the best ideas win.
Yeah, I'll just add that, we're going after these CAP and CLIA labs because that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. These are labs that are dedicated to high quality patient care. And we really think that we can build trust with these groups and integrate our technology there.
Thanks. Great presentation. I'm just curious, what's the kind of cost differential between yourselves and someone like a Quest or someone in that middle column that you showed?
Yeah, if you want to toggle back there. So we're actually talking to Quest deeply as one of our potential customers. They really have paved part of our roadmap in towards of doing validation studies and really being able to cater towards their large footprint. But in terms of the other competitors, in terms of storage formats for nucleic acids, right now our unit economics is roughly $3 per sample. And that is a one-time fee because we don't have to maintain with the ongoing costs of electricity and maintenance since this is brought to room temperature. Genomes and traditional storage approaches are around $12 to $24 annually. So there's already a sizable advantage.
So two questions. One, what's the excitement for these facilities to move over? Because if they lose them, if they try to move over and they lose them, that could be pretty catastrophic. And then two, are there any regulatory risks in this with Ancestry.com versus Quest? One's commercial and I'm signing away rights to, one is medical. Is there anything with bioprivacy concerns that you see going forward?
Yeah, so first I'll address the question about, what it is incentivized for these labs to move over, right? I think we have to be very careful. That's why we mentioned building trust with them. We're not suggesting that they take initial precious samples and then just apply our technology. We're doing it stepwise. And to the second question about the regulatory framework, that is the framework we're working in to do those validation studies so that when it becomes time for technology transfer, it's an easy adoption because it is in the language that they need to be able to present it to CMS, or in these case, the College of American Pathologists, who has the right to do that under CMS. So I think there's definitely a risk there, but we're kind of leveraging that framework, the constraint that they have in order to put ourselves into those laboratories.
Could you help us understand, like, why is this the perfect moment for this company? What's your kind of why now?
Yeah, it's a great question. First off, we don't see this industry going away anytime soon. It's really just been 20 years since the start of a Human Genome Project where we first were able to decode the source code of life. But in terms of right now, we've seen an explosion of interest that's really growing exponentially each year in genetic testing. I think COVID also brought the number of tests to the forefront with all of us doing these PCR swabs, but the need to do variant detection that requires actually keeping that physical sample and going back and looking at the sequence level information. So we keep talking to labs and they're feeling that pinch each day. And especially on that short tail, which we think the Miller Prize can help us address. This is something that alleviates full-time employees, personnel, and equipment that would otherwise go towards addressing diagnosis. So right now, we think it's probably a little late. We should have done this 10 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you.
You mentioned, differences between countries like the US and UK and how are there certain markets you're targeting over others first, or?
Yeah, so the College of American Pathologists accredits about 200,000 laboratories around the world. Largely that's in the US, but also there's a significant number in the Middle East. And also there are a growing number in the UK. And I have previously worked for the NHS, and so I'm very comfortable there as well. And so I think anyone who's under that accreditation framework is going to be our first target there.
Thank you for the great answers. Let's give a hand for Kat Sheehan. Amazing. Next up, we have Friday AI. Friday is every student's personal academic assistant.
Hi, everyone. Okay, looks like that's on. My name is Seth Golden, and this is Friday AI. I'm very lucky to be a Yale student. When I get stuck on a CS problem set, I go to office hours. When I'm struggling with Mandarin, I can request a tutor, but not every student has access to tutors or TAs. And even those who do are often put off by the process of finding time slots and then traveling and then waiting up to hours for assistance. Academic support is critical for student success, but for students at large public universities, Title I public high schools, and auditing courses online, Google isn't good enough. Imagine if every student could access one-on-one tutoring instantaneously with an expert coach. That is Friday, providing personalized AI tutoring to students all over the world. With Friday, we've created a scalable stand-in for academic support that is trying to emulate the experience that I've had at Yale. We're currently testing with 2,500 Yale, Stanford, and Dartmouth students. Here's how they're using Friday. First, homework. Everyone's gotten blocked by a tricky problem or a concept that you can't wrap your head around. Friday doesn't just answer your question. It synthesizes sources to explain things step by step. It cites sources. And if you're still confused, you're able to ask follow-up questions, just like you would with a tutor. Another thing students spend a lot of time on, writing. The process of getting started on a discussion post is difficult, it's daunting. Friday helps students through the process of researching sources, outlining their essay, and then revising it, just like a writing tutor. Finally, I spend half an hour a day writing emails. Friday's helpful with the process of drafting professional, gracious, respectful emails. Soon, you might even be able to just send them automatically. Friday started with a course directory that was trying to make computer science educational resources more accessible. 2 years of research, a ton of advancements in the space of generative AI, and over 100,000 students worth of feedback later, Friday has transformed into a tool that is solving a real need. Students love Friday. We've iterated through 3 MVPs that have been used by over 7,000 students. Our most recent beta was used by around 3,000 students who asked 70,000 questions with a whopping retention rate of 70% on 0 marketing spend. Our most recent version, which we're also testing right now, has around 5 minutes on average, the amount of time students are spending on it. We're also rolling out soon our monetization strategy, which is going to be a freemium subscription that unlocks additional features. My co-founders, Sam and Joe, and I all are from friends from back home, working in the edtech space for the last couple of years. Sam is PM at Microsoft. He runs our marketing and operations team. Joe runs backend. He was a founding engineer at Curious Cardinals, Stanford startup, as well as working at the World Bank when he was still in high school. And then I run our natural language processing with experience as a data science fellow and published researcher. We have a couple frying pans that the Miller Prize will ignite the fire under. One such is with Free Code Camp, one of the largest educational nonprofits in the world. Free Code Camp wants to integrate Friday into their platform, but can't afford to cover server costs. The Miller Prize will give us the ability to scale and the distributional power that we have previously lacked. Additionally, it helps us go full-time this summer. But our ultimate vision for Friday isn't just a chatbot tutor. It's a student's second brain. Friday is going to help with all parts of a student's workflow, from turning notes into flashcards, creating PowerPoint slides for class presentations, and looking at essays and readings for revisions. The space of generative AI has recently gone into hyperdrive. The future of the web is generative, and Friday is pioneering the future of education. Academic support is currently broken or non-existent. Join us at Friday in helping make it more accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Just curious, what's the feedback been so far with institutions that you have rolled this out to? Obviously, there could be some kind of ethical considerations for students and teachers, and just curious how they've responded. And then the second kind of dovetail question to that is what's the integration, I guess, with the education institutions that you deploy it at? Are teachers involved? Is that down the road, and how it kind of differentiates from, like a ChatGPT or something?
Well, that's like 3 questions. So
Yeah.
I'll go one by one. First, right now we're rolling it out B2C, direct to students, because getting rid of that middleman layer of the actual institution makes it way easier to reach students, especially when we're beta testing right now. B2B sales to public institutions for education is very difficult. I think I'll also answer your second question, which was about how is this different from ChatGPT or other similar chatbots. Those are productivity tools that are not designed with education in mind. The biggest problem is they hallucinate. They make stuff up, which is kind of a problem when you're dealing with educational materials. And then you asked something about, like, are we planning to integrate? Yes. We do have plans to integrate with, for example, large nonprofits that are trying to provide computer science educational resources, and then also eventually to roll out directly to schools. And we've explored a bunch of different avenues for that.
I'd love to go back to the ChatGPT question. Can you just go into, like, it seems that part of the technology will be commoditized, and so you need to have, a differentiator in your go-to-market or something like that, unless you're building something bespoke. like from a technology point of view. So could you just help us understand that?
So building something bespoke, like saying that AI is your moat right now is kind of like saying that JavaScript is your moat. Like you're just not going to be able to compete with these massive $100 million models that are being pumped out by these companies. And at the same time, people are democratizing these models by making open source versions that are like trained off the output data of those $100 million models. And so that's not our mode, and that's nobody's mode in this space. Our mode is the same as any other education tool. Like, why does everyone my age know the name Sal Khan? It's because he helped them learn in a way that makes them feel like loyal and respectful to him, and they come back to his videos. And it's the same reason that people come back to educational platforms that help them. So it's just students use it, they find it helpful, they share it with their friends, and then they go back to that over other things. It gains market share that way.
Okay, great.
Thanks for the presentation. I know, I think in your application, you talked a lot about the stickiness and daily average users. Curious about, are you tracking the impact of this on the students' academic performance, or is that something you're planning to do? And what have you seen so far?
Yes, so it's hard to track impact on specific grades without that information. We're currently using like the amount of time students spend on the platform as like sort of a proxy for that, because if students keep coming back and they spend time on it, then that probably means they're finding like it helpful. But we also are going to try and, with that free code camp integration, they have a specific course with certification stuff attached to it that we can like track, is this helping them with that specifically? We're hoping that will help. I also want to talk more about academic integrity to your question, because I realize that that's also part of your question. Currently, when students get stuck, they don't have academic support resources. Their options are they go to Google, they Google their question, they go to a Chegg, a Brainly, a Quizlet, where they're basically paying for the answer to their question. It's behind a paywall. Sometimes it answers their question, sometimes it doesn't. And it definitely doesn't explain why that's the answer. Friday isn't trying to replace those things. It's trying to be as close to a tutor as possible. And a tutor doesn't give you the answer. It leads you towards the answer. We're trying to make it easier to learn than it is to cheat. That's the goal here.
So is your model going to stay B2C? Because ed tech is extremely difficult. What you're looking at is a long journey. Is it going to stay B2C? Do you want to do B2B? And what are your thoughts? If you are doing B2B, is the target graduate, undergraduate, high school? How does that all flesh out?
Yeah, so we've explored a bunch of different avenues for all of that. Right now, we're beta testing at Stanford, Dartmouth, Yale, because that's where we are. It's very easy to access students there, get feedback from there. So currently, we're testing with college students. But if it's helpful to college students, transitive, it'll also be helpful to high school students. And I'm someone who also did a lot of autodidactic learning online. Students who don't have access to these resources is really our target demographic for this. As for like reaching out to schools or integrating with that eventually, right now we're doing B2C because the B2B sales cycle is just super long. Even if I wanted to like roll this out at Yale, I've looked into what that would involve. It's like incredibly difficult to go through a public institution. But the way we're approaching this is closer to a Quizlet, a Duolingo, like these services that are massive billion-dollar ed tech companies that have been very successful with freemium B2C services that students seek out on their own because they realize like, this is helpful to me. This is something that's augmenting my studying. It's making it better. And then eventually, if enough students are using it, that's how you can get the attention of institutions.
And then just last one, how do you define success for usage? Is it just any time on it during a week? Is it 4.5 minutes? Have you kind of come up with what you see as successful?
Right now, it's retention. If people are coming back, that means they're finding it helpful. One time spending an hour is much less meaningful to us than like 10 times spending 5 minutes.
Thank you, Friday AI. Let's give a round of applause. Amazing. Next, we have our last pitch for the Miller Prize, patient-controlled dispenser and deactivator, a liquid oral medication dispenser that empowers patients to control their pain management and prevents abuse. And Divergent, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Claudia C. I'm excited to present the patient-controlled dispenser and deactivator of liquid oral pain medicine. Our device transforms the way pain is managed. Over the past 2 years, I've been working diligently with my co-founder team to solve this issue. Dr. Jinlei Li is a professor of anesthesia here at Yale. She's a nationally known acute pain expert. Dr. Daniel Wisnia is a professor of orthopedics and mechanical engineering. He's a former McKinsey consultant, and I'm a fourth-year MD MBA student at Yale and a former R&D engineer at Medtronic. So let me introduce you to a patient. Mary is a 70-year-old African-American patient who just had spine surgery. She's recovering in the hospital and will be prescribed opioids to control her pain. Right now, Mary must call a nurse every 3 to 5 hours in order to get one oxycodone pill. And if her nurse is busy, she's waiting 2 hours in excruciating pain. And these delays in receiving pain medicine lead her to have uncontrolled pain, lost sleep, a prolonged hospitalization, and even readmission back to the hospital 1 week later due to pain. In reality, Mary is just one of 100 million patients every year in the US who struggle with acute postoperative pain. Currently, these patients have 3 avenues for treatment. First, they can get pills from a nurse, which have delays and inconsistencies. Secondly, they can receive liquid medicine through the vein using what is called a patient-controlled analgesic pump, also known as a PCA pump. This method is effective, but it's not indicated for most patients. Lastly, patients can receive pills through a pill PCA box, like a pill lockbox. This method is really not used clinically because there's still a high risk for misuse and diversion. And when we say diversion, we mean people illegally taking medication that was not prescribed to them. So none of these methods work. And we want to transform the way we manage pain, and we've created a device that repurposes the traditional intravenous patient-controlled analgesic pump for oral consumption of liquid medicine, such as opioids. Here's how it works. First, the patient will press a button on the remote to dispense a dose. Then the PCA pump will dispense the dose into the medicine cup, and then patients can drink the dose by sucking out of a straw, and instantly any excess medication will be instantly deactivated using activated charcoal and solidifier. Here's our most recent prototype that illustrates this. It was built here in the CEID just next door. Okay, so our device will revolutionize pain management because it allows patients like Mary to dispense medication immediately when they need it on demand. It also allows for smaller dosing at higher frequency, which is actually ideal for geriatric patients. And then lastly, it is tamper-proof and deactivates excess medication. As we were developing our device, we personally spoke and interviewed over 50 patients, nurses, pharmacists, and hospital administrators. And I went to the hospital. I personally spoke to the nurses and the patients right after surgery. Patients told me that they really like the independence of this device. And nurses really affirmed that all they do is pass pain meds here at Yale New Haven Hospital. We also spoke with administrators here at the Yale New Haven Health Hospital, as well as the Connecticut Department of Mental Health, and they have also affirmed the value and impact our device can have on patients. Compared to pills, PCA pumps, and pill PCAs, our device is unique because it is the only one that provides safe, cost-effective delivery of liquid medicine. In terms of milestones, last August, we were fortunate to win the largest innovation prize award from the hospital, $150K. And in October, our device was endorsed by the largest international anesthesia meeting. Currently, we're about to sign a contract with a contract manufacturer to produce 30 units. And next steps for us are to conduct a clinical trial at the hospital, to submit for regulatory approval, and then to build a home version of our device with remote monitoring. Right now, we're at a crucial stage where funding is essential. The $25K Miller Prize will enable us to do several key milestones this year. For one, currently, we are trying to complete our contract with our contract manufacturer. We negotiated the deal down by 2/3 with the understanding that we would own more than half of the deliverables. And this is challenging because my co-founders are full-time clinical faculty. I'm a full-time student. However, given my engineering background, I'm really excited to be spearheading this project with them. And this would enable me to commit to this work perhaps full-time this summer. Secondly, we must complete a Q submission to the FDA to properly determine a regulatory path. This is crucial to our timeline, and our consultant for regulatory strategy is paid $200 an hour. So this would give us just an hour or two of her time every week. Lastly, we are eager to integrate remote monitoring software into our device, but right now this is a nice to have, not a need to have feature. And having additional funding would enable us to do that prototyping work right now, as opposed to years from now. In summary, the PCDD transforms the way pain is managed. It empowers patients to safely take control of their pain, and when implemented widely, can reduce pill trafficking and overdose. Thank you.
Can you talk about the potential cost savings to the purchasers of the unit compared to current options?
Absolutely. So as we know, current options are pills dispensed by nurses, and this is relatively cheap. However, as I mentioned, due to delays and inconsistencies, patients might stay there for longer. We found that one of our competitor products, OnQ Pump, did a study. They said that patients went home on average a day earlier. They had up to 60% less pain scores and much greater satisfaction. And so due to things like that, we think that our device will truly be more cost effective in the long run. And just a day in the hospital is already extremely expensive. And we think that many hospitals would be willing to pay for our device because of that cost saving.
So I did see a study about how actually increased sleep the night before surgery actually also reduces pain significantly. So I think there's a lot happening because it is so cost effective on the back end to get people out earlier, and they generally have better outcomes. Is this solution a rip and replace? Are you taking away the PCA? Do you envision this getting rid of anything that would be manually used?
Oh,
Or is this just another tool at the disposal of?
yeah, that's a wonderful
practitioners?
question. I really don't think intravenous PCA is going away for various reasons. Patients sometimes they only can take medicine through the vein. However, we think that this can be given to almost any patient who needs pain management, right? Like whether that's chronic pain, methadone even, or just your typical acute postoperative pain patient. And so we imagine that it will be an addition to the toolbox of pain management options.
And would this only be in a medical setting, or do you see this
Yeah,
happening?
wonderful question. So right now it's easiest to target the hospital setting, but in the future, we're really aiming to have a home version where patients can go home, be discharged with this device as opposed to a bottle of pills.
Can you talk about the sales cycle selling into hospitals and how you, any ideas on how to make
Yeah,
that shorter?
Absolutely. And so we are hoping to start selling perhaps in a couple years, once we've submitted for regulatory approval, something like $100, $200 per unit. We're actively also talking with the reimbursement team here at the hospital. We think that the way to facilitate this process is to create a diagnosis related group code, DRG code. And this is a code that doctors can easily put into the system, and there's a very clear reimbursement pathway. And so that's key here. If we don't have that reimbursement code, people won't be willing to use it. And so we are currently working with the coders and Medicaid, Medicare representatives and private buyers insurances to figure out exactly what that reimbursement strategy is going to look like.
Can you just talk about the rate of success or failure of the devices? Have there been any cases where the machine has not functioned properly? And
Our device.
Yeah.
So so far we've created 3 iterative prototypes, and we I have taken a similar prototype into the hospital, but we haven't been able to like have patients use it yet because we're going to start our contract manufacturer contract right now, and they're going to produce biocompatible units that then we can truly take into the hospital. But it's pretty simple, you know, like you have a pump, it pumps into a cup, and then you can drink it out of a straw. My co-founder called it like a big gulp for medicine. And the deactivating agent is just sitting in the waste reservoir, and any excess medication automatically flows out of a valve in the top of the cup. So
Great. Thank you so much, PCDD.
thank you.
Now, can I get one final round of applause for the 8 amazing pitches you've heard today? Again, thank you everyone for coming, and to all the teams and all the founders that presented today. It's hard to get up here. A job well done. Let's give them another hand. Amazing. So we're going to start with both of the Audience Choice Awards. I'll go with Miller first. The Miller Audience Choice Award is Catch DNA. Let's give them a hand.
Come on up and get a picture with Catch DNA, and then we will do the announcement of the audience prize for the Sustainable Venture Prize. Grace, you want to get that picture? Yes. All right, come on, give me a drum roll on your legs. All right, the Audience Prize Award winner for the Sustainable Venture Prize is Carbon Loop. Come on down, Carbon Loop. Well, you made it a little longer. You kind of could have cut. It's like big entrance.
And without further ado, and could I get another drum roll? The Miller Prize winner for 2023 is Banofi Leather.
All right, and without further ado, come on, one more drum roll. Do your thighs hurt yet? No, come on. Let's go. Maybe you can stomp your feet too. Let's get it up. Let's get the energy going. All right, so the winner of the Sustainable Venture Prize in 2023 is General Biological. Come on down. Judges, please join us up here.
And that concludes the Sustainability and the Miller Prize.